Awesome. Awesome. All right. So today's topic is managing clients' emotions and fears. Well, I feel like Melissa's like a pro at this one because this is all scripts. Come on, seriously. Yeah, so I'm sure we've all had situations where we've had some clients that are difficult, emotional, right, Bill? Little bit.
I had two. You've
had two your whole career, two people.
Two this week. It's only Tuesday.
Right. So how do we manage, their emotions and their fears? It's not easy.
Well, first is validation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, whether they're clients or spouses or whatever, you kind of need to follow the same guidelines in terms of relationship. So what Margaret just said, yeah, you got to validate whatever they're, acknowledge and validate whatever they're expressing. Mm-hmm. But I also feel I don't need to feed into it.
Yep.
So, someone, it might have been my mentor, Rich Lannon, once told me, let the client get emotional, maintain a professional manner, and don't let emotions play into your role as the realtor.
What's the bold law?
Your emotions between the lines.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I think it's important to remember too that just because a client's upset or emotional doesn't mean that something's wrong, right?
Yep.
Just because they're not, they're going through a very difficult time, and with a lot of moving parts, of which we may not even know all the moving parts, right? And it goes beyond just packing boxes and hoping that my sale goes through and hoping that my purchase in the same day goes through, that sort of thing. So just because they're upset or emotional doesn't mean that there's a real issue, mm-hmm. or that somebody screwed something up. Just it's important to remember that, because I do work with a lot of realtors that the client could be emotional, the client could get upset, and they think something's wrong, or they also get themselves amped up, and it's just important to remember that just because they're emotional doesn't mean something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could just be stressed out.
Yeah.
Or dramatic.
Or dramatic.
And both.
Yep. Or passionate about how they feel. Right? What else?
No, I told you so, meaning that we talked about this before or whatever, because nobody likes the I told you so. Mm-hmm. It's more, how do I go around re-explaining that again?
Yep.
I think a good part too is having somebody safe that you can call to say, oh my God, do you know what this one said? And then just kind of letting it out, because it gets to you after a while of constantly mm-hmm. being bombarded. But if you have somebody to bounce it off, maybe chuckle about it and know that, I'm going through the same thing with some of mine, and then try to figure it out that way and respond. And I also think text is the best thing that ever happened, because sometimes I'll get an attacking text, and you get that time to be able to, okay, let me refocus. How do I respond to this kind of thing?
Yeah, don't respond to it right away when your emotions are all heightened when you read it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the other thing too, to help with that, and it doesn't help all the time, obviously, but is communication, and really explaining things as, before you start working with them, like set expectations. And then as things are happening, explain things to them, because if they don't hear from you for a while, they're assuming something that's really not true, and they're getting emotional, and they think something's wrong, like Bob said, but there really isn't anything wrong or whatever. It causes just more tension between both of you, and it makes them uneasy. So if they don't know what's happening, like, well, you didn't tell me that was all said, or you didn't tell me that this is what was happening next. You can bypass a lot of that stuff if you're really communicating with them over the phone, sending them, you know, an email or a text, confirm, you know, next steps and that kind of thing and what's going on. Another thing that I know to be true is don't talk so much. Don't tell them everything. I used to talk a lot. You think I talk a lot now. But I would like want to tell them everything. Stop, Bill, stop laughing. Both Bills are laughing at me.
I'm laughing too.
Yeah.
Used to?
But-
What?
Used to, yeah. No, but I would want to tell them everything, you know, because I felt like, well, it's their property and they should know, or whatever the case is. But what happens is even if it's something that you're going to take care of, but you tell them just because you think that they should know, and then you take care of it and it's not a big deal anymore, they're still wrapped around the situation. Even though it's taken care of, it still makes them angry. You know, I'm sure you've heard like buyers be like, say things about, well, you know, complaining about the seller, or the seller's complaining about the buyer, when it's really not them. It's just like a situation that happened and they take it so personally, right? Yeah. So I've learned to, like, unless I have to tell them if it's something major that they have to make a decision on or something, I will not tell them. I'll fix it first. I'll just fix it, not say anything. But if it can't be fixed, you know, by a deadline or whatever, then obviously I will, you know, let them know what's going on.
I have found in my experience that if you give them a sense of calm from the beginning, you know, I'm your realtor, I've got the experience, I've got this, and you let them know what the stages are going to be, they tend to be pretty calm throughout the whole transaction, even if things come up that are unexpected. If you freak out, they're going to freak out. If you stay calm, they are going to stay calm. I have found through the years that my clients really like a checklist. And I don't bombard them with everything at once. I give it to them in stages. So when it's, you know, when we've agreed on the price and the terms, okay, we're going to complete the paperwork and this is how that is going to happen. Then we're going to focus on, you know, showings and getting an offer and getting through the inspection. And then after that, after we've signed the purchase and sale agreement, that's when we address everything that we need to, you know, take care of before the closing. And that's the point where I'll give them a checklist. And I include lots of things on the checklist that have even already, you know, happened and taken place, and we can just check those off the list, because I've found that in my experience, they seem to like to know, you know, what to do, have it in front of them, and some of the items are already ticked off the list, so they're feeling like they've already got a leg up on what the process is going to look like. The best advice I ever got from my first mentor in real estate, who was Rick Murray, was if you ride the emotional roller coaster with your clients, you're never going to survive. So you really need to just keep it in the lines and remember that the stakes for them are much higher than the stakes for you. Even if you haven't had a closing in a really long time and, you know, you need that commission paycheck, just remember the stakes are much bigger for them. They're picking up their lives, they're moving. It's a huge amount of money to them, regardless of what the sale price is. So it's up to us to steady the ship and be calm and guide them through. Don't make decisions for them, but guide them through. And then after all that conversation's over, put down the phone, close the camera, close your lid, then you freak out with a colleague or at home, you know, freak out then, but just stay really calm with your clients.
Yep.
Address their concerns. Margaret, you said in the very beginning that, you know, validate what they're thinking, what they're expressing. Absolutely. Listen to them, repeat it. You know, so what I'm hearing you say is you're concerned about this. And if you don't know why, ask them, what are the reasons why you're concerned about that? And just assure them of, okay, well, this is how we would solve that if it came up. You need to be calm and you need to be the guide. And I find that always brings them right back down. You know, I have one woman who is selling her home with me in Sharon, and they've moved out of state, and she does not want to talk on the telephone, period. She wants to Zoom with me every time there's something to talk about. So, okay, you know, if that keeps her calm and she needs to see my face as well as hear my voice, then hey, you know, I'm at it if that's what I've got to do. But you have to listen to what they need and you have to provide it. Do you want me to communicate with you, you know, by text or by email, or do you want me to call you? You have to ask those questions. They have to know what to expect. If they know what to expect, they're calm.
Yeah. And Bob, you want to talk about your airplane analogy?
Yeah. So, you know, it's something I talk about with my clients. It's just, you know, you're never going to get onto an airplane and hear the pilot say, it's a 3-hour flight today, and I guarantee there will be absolutely no turbulence. That never happens, right? We're always going to
I'm available. Text me, if you need me, I'm here.
Okay, Bob, thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
All right.
Thanks, Bob.
We're always going to have some kind of turbulence, but just because there's turbulence in your flight doesn't mean the plane's going to crash and burn, right? The captain's still going to land the plane safely. So talking about that airline example, I think is a great story to bring up at the beginning, because we can always bring it back to, hey, remember that turbulence talk we had at the beginning of the transaction? That's all this is. This is turbulence. Okay, we're going to take care of it. It's not going to impact your closing date or your commitment date. Everything's going to be just fine. We'll get through this, I promise. You know, and I think that just reminds them that, oh yeah, this is normal. Things come up we weren't expecting. This is normal. And it's going to be okay.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think too, being honest with them and setting expectations. I had a client where, most of you know this already, but, we listed the house for $460. We got an offer for $510. And, that's fantastic. But I really didn't think it was going to appraise at that. And if it did, that's great. But, I had to have the conversation with the seller. Hey, this could come in under, this is what the comps are. So, you don't want them to get so emotionally wrapped up to that 510 that like when the appraisal comes in later that they freak out about it, and that's what happened. Our appraisal came at 425. Was he thrilled? No, but he handled it really, really well. And we came to, a strategy on what to do to get a little bit more than that 425. And, we didn't expect it to be 510 in the first place. And he understood that. If he got it, great. But if he didn't, he had to be happy with what we did get. So it worked out and he didn't like panic or flip out, which was good. Most people would flip out about that. I mean, could you imagine 510 and then getting a 425 appraisal? You guys know. What was it?
Is he the buyer and
Seller?
Okay, so what did the buyer do? Did the buyer reach in his pocket to pony up the difference?
They paid $25,000 out, so we end up selling it for $450.
So the 510 went down to 450?
Yes.
That's kind of odd, isn't it? I mean, that's a big variance, 60 grand.
Yeah, well,
That's what's happening.
we probably shouldn't have got 510 in the first. I mean, it wouldn't even comp out.
Yeah.
I went through the comps because I was like, all right, let me dig through the comps, see what I can do to, go back to the appraiser. And honestly, we're lucky we got 450.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to list. I told him, I said, you wanted to list it for 460. I was going to list it for 450. So, he understood, we had that conversation. I think you have to have that relationship with your people too, so that they trust you. But I mean, not all people are going to be, that good about it either. So it's not like, oh, if you say this, then it's going to work for everybody. It's not.
Especially at that price point too, right? I mean, I think if a house is on for 1 point, goes under agreement for 1.2 and the appraisal comes in at 950, maybe someone will pay the difference there, especially if they're putting down a pretty good sized down payment. But, as a listing agent, you have to think to yourself, if we lose this buyer, even though things are going over asking right now, is the next buyer's appraisal going to come in even lower than 4.25? And am I going to get more than 450? So what's that saying about a bird in the hand or something like that?
Yeah.
What you got, what you got. And so, yeah. And basically, Kristen, sorry to cut you off there, but
no.
In that situation, your seller basically got your services for free, right? I mean, the house appraised for 425, it sold for 450, and you sold their house for 5% more than the market could bear, really, right? So you did your job. You earned your commission there, right?
Great point. I like that.
Ooh,
Damn,
with the math.
I like that.
Well, too,
down.
it's not like I had multiple offers either, right? We had steady showings, but I didn't have multiple offers. It was the first offer we had. They were strong buyers, no home inspection. So you have to take everything into consideration. If I put the house back on the market, now I have a home inspection. Now what? Are they going to walk away? Are they still going to be there? I mean, there were a lot of factors in this house. This is probably the first house that I've sold that's had really weird, strange things that none of us could control because of government situations, but you know, there's things that we couldn't control, and everybody really stayed calm and handled it, and we got through it, and we closed on time, which was kind of a miracle, to be honest. But yeah, you have to take everything into consideration.
I think along these lines, it's important to remember the difference between empathizing and apologizing. Just because a client is upset doesn't mean that you have to apologize, right? Empathy goes a long way. And this goes back to, I think, what you mentioned, Kristen, about listening. And, you know, that's really where, you know, the power of empathy comes through. You know, you can just put yourself on their level. Yeah, I know it's difficult. I know it's hard. I've sold my house before, you know, that sort of thing. And yeah, empathy versus, you know, empathize, don't apologize. Unless you screwed something up. Okay. Then apologize, then own it. But yeah.
Yep. What else? Bob Gill?
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm sorry, I was just a little late, so I forgot the, I wasn't quite sure of where it was going, but it seems like the issue is managing a client's expectations and working through it.
Their fears. Yep, exactly. Yep.
So,
fears and anxiety.
If it's just a case, just a quick one, if this is helpful, this is live. I was just on the phone with Amy because we had a new listing on, put a new listing on in Holbrook this weekend. Had 39 showings, 9 offers, negotiated, got a great offer, got it accepted, and the seller is nervous about the what if. Well, what about if and she has a place under agreement to buy. What about if it doesn't work? What about if I can't get, what about if if it doesn't work, it's new construction, it's not ready, I don't want to be homeless. To talk someone through that is so important. And what I said to her is that one is, I always use the classic, I've never had a client that's homeless. It's my favorite. But say to her is that you've got some uncertainty on the place that you're trying to buy because it's new construction, it could slip. I says, but you've got an offer here, but I just say it's a cash offer, no contingency, 75,000 over the asking, and she's worried. And she's worried that things are going to fall apart. It's just, I mean, it's just, I think, Bob, you said it, there is just so much stress involved in this process that's where it's not that they're just in stress. And so to be able to talk them through that it's going to be okay. You don't take away the issue and you don't take it on because they're the ones that make the decision, but to show them how it can work. And we simply said, gee, you just got $75,000 more that you didn't expect, or you will. And you have we've just opened up a whole new possibility. You could buy a place that is $75,000 more. You've got all opportunities. And it's just to be able to talk them, listen to them and talk them through it. And take their fears and turn it around. And that's what we're doing. It's real with them, but it's unfounded. They shouldn't be worried, but they are. And this is the way it is in this market here. So between Amy and I mean, I'm handling the listing, Amy's on the buy side, and between them, we're walking them, we're talking them through and just listening. And then as they raise issues, say, here are the options.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, this is what it's more like a counseling business. That's what I find, a counseling business. You need to counsel them through, and it's based on our experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's making the difference. They need to be confident in your coaching and your counseling. They need to, if we second guess ourselves, we're questioning what we're doing. I always try to be so confident, but not pushy. Just say that this can work, and I've seen this before. We'll get through it. That's the answer to this in this market. In fact, in most markets, but here it's even more acute because of what's going on in the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can't take it personally either. Because you don't know what's going on with them. Even if they say it's one thing, you don't know if they're fighting with their spouse or situation with their kids, or you just don't know. And, you know, they can say one thing to you one day, and then, you know, next week it's a totally different person, you know, it's because they're out of that frame of mind.
Well, the other thing you could do, because I think you said earlier, we don't know all what's behind it. And my approach is the more we know about this situation, the better, to be able to help them. And so what I keep asking questions to draw out what that is, and it will come out. It will come out when we're asked, you know, so what's that concern about? Is there something else going on? And if you're patient and keep asking questions about the situation, you'll often find it. And it could be family conflicts. It could be, you know, too many people involved. It could be you don't know who the real decision maker is. But that's what I find is be patient and keep asking open-ended questions until it comes and comes out. And in most cases it will. So just
that's a really great point. You know, what Bob's talking about, and I don't know, Bob, if you know this or if you've seen it, but that's the Sandler method of sales. And it's powerful. And if you guys haven't heard that before, just write that down. Sandler sales method, Sandler. And that is really just designed to, you know, really ask questions to dig deeper and find out what the pain really is, right? Someone looks at Melissa Garlisi and says, "You're the worst realtor I've ever met." There are questions you can ask that basically you drill down, and, you know, you're going to find out that it's not about you, the realtor. It's about the fact that, you know, their kid is just got suspended from school again, and, you know, has been over a friend's house for the last 2 days, and they don't know where they are. Like, and they're worried about that. You know, the Sandler sales method is a game changer. So, Bob, you're right on point with that.
Yep.
Brad?
I found over the last number of transactions that it's really important to use email properly and completely. What I mean by that is when we sell or buy for Mr. and Mrs., and if Mrs. is the lead or Mr. is the lead, with the hundreds of emails that go back and forth, it's the tendency of the agent to migrate towards the active team leader. And I don't take that approach. I make sure that both Mr. and Mrs. are cross-CC'd on all emails, because it eliminates the drama. And I found that if we get into a tenuous situation, that they're both on the same page well ahead of time, and it's not like Mrs. asking Mr. or vice versa, what do you think about that? Because they've already got it thought through because they received the communication. So my point is that open and clear communications to both buyers, even if they're not buying together, but they are technically on paper, but they are in fact visiting and making offers together. That's critical to make sure that we minimize the drama. And fortunately, I've not had drama because of that. So email is a great tool. I don't do texts with deal making because really you can't archive them. So I encourage everybody to use the email. And to Kristen's point about 5 or 8 masterminds ago, I've set up my ground rules on timing. Like, for instance, if somebody calls me at 10 o'clock at night, I just don't answer it because that sets the precedent. So combining that with effective email has been good for me.
Awesome. Thanks.
You bet.
Hey, Kristen, Alexandra had a question too, just talking about, speaking of emotional buyers, I think we can all relate to this. Have you guys ever had a buyer client who wanted to take a break from looking for homes because of too many disappointments? So buyer burnout, and how are some of the people on the call handling buyer burnout? What do you think?
That's a great question. Who's working with buyers? All right, talk to us about buyer burnout. Bob's like, I only work with buyers.
Hey, it's a real thing. I'll tell you that back about 4 months ago, right around January, February, like we were right dead thick in the madness, that I lost 3 or 4 buyers because I had the conversation with them. They were burnt. I was burnt. I'm like, listen, if it got to the point where, you know, this is when the agents had to, you know, stand in a line in a driveway in the snow for 2 hours for a 15-minute appointment that you only had 6 minutes actually in there. And I started having conversations with buyers saying, this is not worth it. I mean, if you see this, this is how fake this market is right now. Will not always be like that. Don't stop looking. However, kind of take a step back. Let all these people, I believe, overpay. I believe if you closed on a house in the last 2 weeks, you can't buy that back for what you just, you can't sell that for what you just purchased it for, maybe in a month or so. I advised a couple of buyers to take a step back from real estate. Some appreciated it. I think I had 3 buyers that actually did do it. They took a step back, and now inventory is up 35% in 30 days. So, based on the state. Some, I did have one buyer say, hey, we're just going to go to the listing agent for everything. I wish them the best of luck. As far as I know, they still haven't found anything. But yeah, I encourage them to take a step back and not play into the stupidity of the market. And I think it was helpful. I know a handful of them did not overpay for properties, and I can sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
I would have the conversation, by the way, of saying, if you purchase this property, I feel that at some point you're going to call me back because you're going to be in some type of financial turmoil. And 18 months, 24 months from now, I'm not certain that I can sell this property for what you're buying it for. If you're prepared to lose money in 24 months, we can do this. If you're not, let's just take a breather. And when you start spelling out, saying, hey, I've seen this movie before, where people started to become not in an equity position, and the ending's not fantastic. A lot of buyers, most sensible buyers, actually were thankful of what I said. Not all, and that's okay. You're not going to win them all. You're not going to get 100%, buy-in on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of like Ben Kinney's approach. He's more of like, well, we should all be like he consults them and does what's right for them financially and really digs into what they're looking for and what their goals are and what their plans are. And if it doesn't fit into what the current market is, he's honest with them. He's not doing it just to sell a house and say, oh, well, I need another sale today, so I'm going to, push this person to buy something if he feels that it's not right for them financially. Right, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this play out, and I mean, people are out there right now, hey, in order to get this house, you got to go $100,000 over asking price. You have to waive your home inspection. You have to bridge the gap on an appraisal. Is your need for housing that bad? Like, and maybe for some people it is. And, I'm sure some of the people on here have had the conversation. I know Bob Gill and I talked about it is, what's your plan? How long you plan on being in this house? Is it 5, 7, 10 years? Because then you can play the game. If you want to be in here 2, 3 years, because you just got married and maybe you want to have a child and grow your family fast, maybe this isn't the game you want to play in. Maybe you need to wait a little bit, one more year, save a little bit more money, and maybe you can buy this house next year for less money than you would have paid for it today. Or maybe buy that step-up house the same price you would have just bought that house for. It truly depends on the client and what their 5 or 10 year goals are.
But Chris, it also that's the long range plan. The other is, what is their situation now?
Mm-hmm.
So they're out looking at houses, and I always want to know is ask if we don't find something, what do you do? And some are dealing with I have a lease, and I either need to extend my lease, or I have to make a decision. So I always find out about their situation is, what's their motivation for buying, and it varies, and that's insightful. And so if you know that, and I've got we've got some clients that didn't find anything, and they had to do something. They had to get out. They had to lease, and so we had that in mind. And in a case like that, say, okay, given the situation, you're better off. And if it's not make it or break it. They'd like to have a house, but they're willing to rent again. You participate and you encourage that, and then you have them a year down the road. So you just stay in touch with them. So some of them that just won't happen. And then the others are the ones that get frustrated, but they're still in the game. I try to slow down, and they don't need to make a move. I try to slow down the pace. Instead of, we've got one client who is out there every weekend, losing every weekend, and they'll continue until they get it. And that's one, and that's not an issue. But others who get frustrated, let's just say slow it down. Let's not be out there making offers and looking at property wait for the ones you get. So, because you slow down the action, so it's not frantic.
Hey, Bob, to follow up with that, the second part of that, the people that are out there every weekend that are making offers, at some point they're bound to make a bad decision and possibly get a house. You know, they just because they're so used to the eBay effect of bidding, and then hopefully they don't get one and have that holy shit moment like I just bought a house and I'm not sure, because you know, you can look in MLS and see a bunch of back on markets. I had a client last week that we looked for a year. They found a house. We waived home inspection. We waived mortgage appraisal. We waived everything. We were given a kidney, a kitty, a unicorn, and a pony. And 4 days later, they decided it was not the house for them and they backed out. Zero recourse. And it was other than, it was in a flood zone. They wanted to put a big addition on. And we found out that because of FEMA, we're going to have to raise the house 6 feet. Kind of a big deal. You know, but I had to go with my tail between my legs and you know, buy the listing agent a really nice parting gift for that one to, you know, to not leave on bad terms. But you don't ever want anybody, because I've had people make the wrong decision. You know, they jump on a house, they're like, hey, we got it. And then you can kind of see that inner turmoil, like, hey, I don't want this house. And I can only imagine how much of a bad feeling that must be.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, to this point, I am just generally concerned about today's pricing, because it will correct. And for some people, they could get hurt. And it's the ones who have the short-term horizon where they're not going to be in there long-term. So I'm just generally concerned out there with working with people paying these crazy prices. And that's why I will ask the question we talked about the plan, and I'll just it's always nice working with a live example. So that couple that's out there had been out there. I met with them on Sunday morning, and they found another house. Then they're going to pay dearly. And I said to her, I just want to check, is what's your plan? They said, we can see us being in here 5 to 7 years. We're going to have a family. We'd like to have a family. And so with the family, there's enough room in here so that we're not as sensitive. We're not real sensitive to, you know, to a price drop in, you know, a cycle. Of course, if you lose your job, it's a little different, but that's a risk. But they're one that are absolutely okay with paying, because they're not worried down the road. And they said, hey, this guy works for Google. And so he said, our next house will be, you know, a single family. And they said, you know, this could be an investment property. So they had a real plan, and they're willing to overpay. And then the question was, why did you lose all these other properties? And this is an interesting one. And it's just another source. I said to them, so they were putting in high offers. They were eliminating their inspection contingencies. And the only hang up was mortgage. Now, I said, could you, you know, and I asked them about the question. I said, is there any way, you know, I said, you know, that's the issue, and they've lost it. And I said, gee, is there any way you could do this, that you could waive the inspection? I gave them some examples I've had where people have waived it, where they've had someone in behind who would step up and like a family member. And as I had that discussion with them and gave them an example of another one that had happened, the husband said, this is where you ask a question. He said, you know, we were thinking about that. And he said, geez, you know, my wife's family just sold a property in Brighton. And, you know, I said, why don't you go ask them if they were willing to back you if you need it. They're going to get their financing, there's no question. But to eliminate that uncertainty, he said, boy, never thought of it. They went to the parents, and the parents said, of course we will. And they gave them they showed proof of funds. They gave them a gift letter that would cover it. And that's the backup plan. They will not have to use that. But it allowed them to actually go in there with a no essentially cash offer. That's Bob, you know, think about that one. You know, that's a tough one. And it's rock solid because the parents, the money's sitting in there and they'll do it. So if you could find ways around it, and that's how they found the way around it. So we put an offer in, we're waiting to hear. So now we have a way over asking offer, no contingencies, and let's see what happens.
It's funny you bring that up, Bob. I think one of the things I would talk about with my clients that goes along that same line is it's my job to present you with all of your options, no matter how kind of outlandish they may seem. And then it's up to you to decide whether or not those options are realistic for you. Because what I don't want is for my experience, or, you know, because of my experience, me not bring something up that may not apply to me or other clients, but it did to you. And then 6 months after you buy your house, you say, man, Bob, why didn't you tell me that? I could have done X, you know? So yeah, it's our job to present them with all of their options, and it's up to them to decide whether or not which option works for them, which option works for them best.
Yep.
That's great.
I would be surprised if any of us found a market any more challenging than this one in the coming years. I mean, I've been at it 19 years and I've seen lots of challenging segments of time, but certainly as far as, you know, managing stress and managing expectations right now seems to be really the height of that, at least for me. So, you know, Bob Gill, you had mentioned asking questions. So I think at this point in time, there are a few things we have to keep in mind. This isn't the time for amateurs to be in the market. So, you know, use that in your consultations with your clients when you first meet them. Let them know that, you know, you are a professional. This isn't a good time to hire, you know, their next door neighbor's nephew or niece who, you know, got their license and does this part-time. This is a market where buyers and sellers really need a professional working with them who's in the trenches every day. But to that point as well, I think it's also important that we take care of ourselves and give ourselves the best chance at success and staying calm. So, you know, take care of yourself during the day. Make sure you drink, make sure you're eating, make sure you have, you know, enough time away and that you can manage some time off at some point. I think that's really important. I know for me, that keeps me really kind of like calm and keeps my, it keeps my bucket full basically, because once I start to feel like I'm on that treadmill, I start to lose my patience and I may, you know, say some things that I might regret or preferred to have said a little bit differently. But it starts with the consult. Speak with your sellers at length, speak with your buyers at length, right from the very beginning, and ask questions. The best question I was ever given by my coach as part of my interviewing process was, have you ever worked with a realtor to buy or sell property in the past? Great, tell me about that experience, if they had. And 9 times out of 10, it's, you know, they'll bring up some things that were really stressful or that they didn't like, or, you know, was that a good experience for you, Mr. Seller, or was that a bad experience for you, Mr. Seller? Tell me about that. If you understand what bothered them in the past, you're very unlikely to repeat that pattern again for yourself. So stay in their good graces, understand what their triggers are, what disappointed them in the past, and be overly sensitive to not repeating that pattern while they are your client. That helps me tremendously. And I also ask, what will make this a great transaction for you? Sometimes it's not about the money. Sometimes it's about, you know, making a date, or sometimes it is about that extra $10,000 and they're willing to go through the risk of a home inspection and potential renegotiating. They want to take that higher offer for whatever their reasons are. And impress upon them again. I think Bob Malone, you had said it, don't make decisions for them, just let them know what the possible outcomes are and what their options are. So take care of yourself. I find that for me is the biggest benefit for helping me manage stress. I got to take care of myself first, and then I'm fully available for whatever my clients need.
That's exactly right. And that really goes down, I think, with the Sandler stuff like Bob was bringing up. That's really just about you getting deeper. When you're talking about triggers and finding out all this different information, you're really just getting deeper with the client, finding out what makes them tick, really what their pain point is. It's not that, Missy, you suck as a realtor. It's something else. They're just taking it out on you.
And it builds rapport as well. The more deep you're willing to go to understand what their concerns are or what makes them really happy, the more they're going to trust you, and you'll have a better relationship with them, and you'll have a better transaction for both you and for them. And that's how you grow your business, by referral, by giving them great service. Who doesn't want to work that way? I do.
So it just occurred to me, what you just raised was worry about your client, worry about yourself, and also worry about everybody else in the transaction. When I say worry about it, is that you want to have first, and for me, I say it's my team. I have stress, and I think I manage pretty well, but I need to be making sure that everybody on my team, especially Kathy Arnold, who's so committed and dedicated. In fact, sorry, I forgot. Kathy's probably sitting on here, and it's stressful. And so I keep saying, I keep asking that question: is you got to manage your stress. What can we do to make it simpler? So you try to care about others in the team. But by the way, there's a real benefit when you also have the same kind of, at least show the same kind of care for the agent on the other side, because that helps you, because you're building trust, you're building rapport. The attorneys, what happened, the reason why this gets really tough is that there's so many people involved in the transaction. And if you got one or more that are on edge, it really makes it tough. So it's not easy, but it's just kind of just being aware that everybody in the transaction is under stress, and be aware of that and figure out who is and try to diffuse that. So I try to work across,
including ourselves.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. That was Missy started off with ourselves.
Right.
But I just say is just be aware of all of the stress among a number of people there, and just, you can't solve it for them, but just be aware. And when it gets stressful, you recognize it's maybe not them, it's the situation. And so that's what makes it really complex. There's so much going on.
Yep. Nothing we do is easy.
I think Missy alluded to it earlier too. I think with emotion, there's real opportunity oftentimes, right? Two of my best clients started with them ripping into me. One was when I first got into the business. I messed up a home equity line debt to income calculation. I had no idea that it was done differently than a traditional mortgage. And with a woman named Christine Verdoni, an older Italian Medfield lady, and she talked to one of the owners at Radius, basically talked her into a cash out refinance. I went up to her house, and I'm sitting at her kitchen table, and I was brand new in the business, maybe 6 months in. And it was during dinner time. I'm sitting at her kitchen table, and she's yelling at me up and down while she's standing at her stove, like preparing a plate for me to eat. And so I was in, this old Italian lady's yelling at me while she's feeding me. So I felt right at home. And, but we really became very good friends and great clients after that. Another couple are two doctors, and we just hit them up with some paperwork requests, and they came right back to us. We're busy, we're surgeons, we don't have time for this, blah, blah, blah. I ended up sending them some of our baby onesies, and because they just had a baby, and they melted. And they're now not only great clients, and I've probably done 8 or 9 purchases and refinances for them, maybe more over the last 5 or so years. But they're good friends too. They're good people, and come to my client events. And so that's also, I think, a good example of, don't be afraid to make that phone call. If somebody's mad, address it, right? Or if somebody's emotional, don't hide. That just is like adding gasoline on a fire, right? Address it, nip it right in the bud, and they could turn into your best clients too.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I don't think that lady was yelling at you. I think that's just the way she talks.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. Well, it's really funny. So she does all the squawking, all the talking.
That's what we do.
I've never heard her husband, Giovanni, say a word. And I remember her yelling at me. I'm sitting at the kitchen table with her husband, John, who's like 80 years old at the time, and another seat on the kitchen table. I look over at him and he just goes like this. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, dude,
What
I'm
am I
not
gonna
saying a
do?
word. It's your turn now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had 60 years of this, man. It's your turn, Bob.
Yeah. We're not fighting. We just talk this way.
Yeah, yeah, right,
I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yep.
That's my family.
So as far as that opportunity piece goes too, we think about, I remember Corey Morris's story where he had that listing in a really nice neighborhood in Milton. Of course, he wasn't a Milton agent. He's also a person of color, right? And in that neighborhood, it's just, he stood out, and he was door knocking, and he was sending out emails to the association, and one crotchety old lady was all over him. I think that at one point might have even either called the police or yelled at him for door knocking in the surrounding towns. And he basically was able to build so much rapport with that woman that she grabbed him by the arm and guided him over to a neighbor and said, "This is Corey. I know you're looking to sell. He'd do a good job for you to selling your home."
Mhm.
And Corey would have had every right to tell her from the beginning to go pound sand and make her life even a living hell. And he didn't. He did it the right way. He built rapport and got a freaking $800,000 listing lead from it. That's just crazy, right? After the woman told him, "You're not supposed to solicit to the association," she took him over to a neighbor and helped him solicit to the association, right? So just with emotion, there's opportunity there.
Mhm.
I've got a question on a different topic, if I could ask it.
Sure.
I was on Shelter Island yesterday in New York, where the properties are $2 to $20 million. I was in Montauk, and you pass over Shelter Island on the way back to New London, Connecticut. So I stopped by a realty office, and they had, great pictures of $50 million homes in the window. And I saw one. It was a carriage house for $795,000. I said, "Boy, that's beautiful. My wife would love that." Took a picture, sent it to my wife, got all excited, called the realtor, no call back. And then she just pinged me and said, "Sold." And I looked, and it was sold back in December of last year. Isn't that a big fat bait and switch if they have the picture in the window and they don't show it as sold?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, but was it not? It definitely wasn't a sold sign. Like, these are all the houses we've sold.
Correct. Yeah, you would think that, right? And she said, she called me this morning and said, "Sorry, that's sold, but I'll show you another one," which is, $3 million. And I said, I don't like the smell of that. And I looked it up, and clearly it's bait and switch. I'm just trying to have somebody sympathize with me.
It was at the office, like the window in the office.
Yeah, the window in the office, and they didn't distinctively show solds versus available. So it was like pre-season, everything looked like it was available. So I call my wife, I send the picture, and then I text the realtor, and then she gets back to me within 24 hours. And I just thought it was not good.
Hot market, Brad. You got to move fast, buddy. Bigger, faster, better, more. If you're not, what is it? If you're not first, you're last. Bobby,
Yeah.
Was it from Talladega Nights there, right?
Yeah.
That's funny. One of my captains lives
Ricky
on.
Bobby.
One of my captains lives on Shelter Island, so I called him and said, "Hey Ken, what's going on with that house?" He said, "It's haunted. It hasn't sold for a year and a half." So anyway, that got my wife excited. She wanted a haunted house on Shelter Island.
Well, you could call her and say, "Hey," when the lady called you, ask her, say, "Show me another one for $799, just like this."
Yeah.
Maybe she could like opportunity, right, Bob? Maybe she could find us something else. Yeah.
If you guys haven't heard of this book, I know if you've been around me long enough, I mention this book all the time, but this book is a legitimate book. And if you as a realtor, as a professional, have a tough time with that emotional line, I'd highly recommend downloading the audiobook. And the reason I say the audiobook is great is because there's some real clean messages in there that really relate to what we do. But as the title of the book would sort of imply here, there is some sarcasm in there and some dry humor. So the author is the one who narrates the audiobook and really crushes it, really does a good job. So if you're looking for a book to read that'll help you with something like this, that is the best book I've ever read on the subject. And it's one of Amazon's all-time bestsellers too. Highly, highly recommended.
It's a great book. Great book. It's very funny.
Yeah.
I'm buying it now.
Good. And I think, one thing to remember too, I think is when you get emotional, it doesn't show. And this is really what this book is all about, right? When you get emotional, it doesn't mean you care more. The subtle art of not giving enough is really just all about caring, but in a different way, right? So if your loved one got into a horrible car accident, you got that phone call, they're going to the hospital into surgery and you're rushing to the hospital too. You're going to act one way as the loved one in the waiting room. And, the surgeon also cares about their client very much, but the client's not going to be acting or feeling the same way that you are. And you wouldn't want them to either. If they were, their level of service wouldn't be as high as it is if they're just able to focus in a very unemotional way on their patient, right? So in this situation, I really just feel like we have to be more like the surgeon as opposed to the loved one waiting for the outcome of that surgery in the waiting room. Both care about that person, but just in different ways.
That's
Right
true,
on.
Bob. That's a great point. Yeah. Hadn't thought about it that way.
There you go. This is the book. Go buy it. Thanks
Now I
for
want to
sending
get
that.
on Audible.
Yeah.
It's good.
I
If
don't
you don't
usually
have
do
it,
that.
you got to
So-
get it. It's
So
a
you
great
have to
book.
log in from your Amazon account, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
your Audible account or whatever.
Another
I
thing
like the books. I like to highlight stuff.
Christina,
Yeah.
I was having this thought, the narrator is an over-emotional Sicilian woman.
yeah. Right.
Hey, Kristen, I found it.
Oh my God, thanks for the laugh. That was great.
Got mine right here.
And one thing that I think that really helps with culture too, and I mention it all the time in the office, and I partially do it more out of affirmations than anything, but we attack problems, not people, right?
Mhm.
And I just think that's so important in all aspects of life.
Mhm.
In the office with our clients, in the office with our coworkers, we attack problems, not people. It's just so important. As soon as we start getting into attacking the person, all bets are off. Everything that could possibly be constructive goes out the window. When we start attacking the person.
That's great advice too. Yeah, I like that.
Awesome. Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts?
This is a great one. Great topic.
Yeah. I like hearing about how different people on the call handle things differently. It's good advice.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Gives you
really.
good perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Margaret's point too. Sometimes you just need to call a friend and have a conversation, and they may look at it a different way or give you some type of response to say, because they're disconnected to the situation, right? 'Cause it's not their client. So they can say, you know what, why don't you just respond with this, or, ask them this question, get clarity. Because sometimes our first reaction is just to like flip out, like whenever they respond, like just go right back at them. And we really can't do that, right?
Mhm.
We're the professionals, they hired us. Yes, we may be stressed out, but they're way more stressed out. They're packing and everything, it's a lot if you've ever moved a house. So, and worrying about finances and mortgage commitments and all that stuff.
We're also practicing psychology.
Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Finance.
just
estate planning.
departing, I've got to go, but the comment I made, the first one about the buyer who buying and selling is freaking out and can't make a decision. I'm just looking at traffic. She just signed the offer.
Nice.
So
Good.
thank you, Kathy. Kathy's maybe off because she was handling it, but talk us through it. Just be patient, and it's done. So that's a win.
Nice work.
Good work, Bob. That's great.
Awesome. Great, great. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much. At
Yeah.
11 o'clock, if you are interested, we have the MREI class. I will be interviewing Stacy, thank you, Bill, Stacy Jordan from Homebridge Mortgage about her investments and why she has them and how she's handling them. So please join us at 11, 1 hour. Make sure you read your pages.
Very good. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
All right, take care.
Bye.